Welcome to Conversations in the Coop. I'm your host, Trinity Director of Athletics, Drew Galbraith. My pleasure to be joined today by our new men's head squash coach, Moustafa Hamada. Moose, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So, Moose, we'll talk a lot about your squash career, but I actually want to start on something that happened very recently, which was a reunion of men's and women's squash players on campus for the purpose of honoring Coach Assaiante's retirement. Just give a couple reflections on what was really a special celebration of Trinity squash and the entire history of Trinity squash.
Yeah, no, I'm still trying to recover. It was a lot of planning, a lot of things had to come in place, and we worked hard with the alums and everyone in the school to try to get this very special, and we received a lot of good feedback. A lot of people were very interested in coming to celebrate Coach, and so I think we were over 200 guests. There were people who flew from every continent in the world, which is very special. I think he's still overwhelmed a little bit if you ask him now, but yeah, it was amazing, and having gone here, it was also special for me personally because I haven't seen a lot of these guys for a long time, and so yeah, it was great. I felt the love, I felt a lot of support going forward, and yeah, I think that everything went as we hoped it would.
So when you think back about the tradition of Trinity squash, which goes back almost 100 years, and particularly the last quarter century of just otherworldly success, when you see some of those legendary players, some of whom you played with as a student athlete here, some of whom came before you, and some of whom came after you, I'm sure you know many of them really well, and then others you only know in passing. Mm-hmm. Was there one interaction where you're like, wow, I've never gotten to see that person since they graduated, or I haven't seen them since I've only seen a picture on the wall? Was there someone that you got to meet over the course of the reunion weekend?
Yes, I've met a lot of people I've never met or seen before. A few come to mind. Someone like Eduardo Pereira from Brazil. I literally told him, hello, I walk past your picture every single day, and this is the first time we meet. Because his picture is upstairs, right outside the lacrosse office, and, I think till this day he might be the only Brazilian who's ever come to Trinity, and he was a top player. A lot of the guys who, Bassett, Gustav, who sadly didn't make it this weekend, but I fortunately was able to meet a lot of them when I was playing. Mm-hmm. So that was great. I mean, looking back to a lot of them staying in the squash field, between coaching and between, my years here, Lafika, Johnny Smith, all these guys I met before. I think definitely a lot of the older guys who are 90s, 80s, these guys, I met a lot of people over the weekend, which was really great. It's like everyone comes in and introduces themselves, and as soon as they say their name, I was like, oh, I've heard a lot about you. So that was...
So Moose, you have the either enviable or unenviable position of following a legend, your own college coach, Paul Assaiante. Coach was here for 30 years, won 17 national championships, and I promise this will be the hardest hitting question I ask you the whole time, but when you think about that, when you think about replacing someone whose name has been synonymous with Trinity squash for the past 3 decades, and now you're stepping into that role, what's the thing that maybe keeps you up at night, or that you're have the most nervous anticipation about as you head into your first season as a head coach?
I think it's the uncertainty. And it's impossible to know, but it's just that I know that every day I'm going to be dealing with something new that I maybe have seen before, but I wasn't necessarily the decision maker. I feel well equipped. I've been in college squash for over 5 years now. apart from my playing career. So I've been around CSA for 12 years now, and I feel like I've gained a lot of experience. It's just the question of, okay, like, you have to make a decision on the fly. And what gives me that sort of support is the people around me. I think this, between family, between, the close coaches, between Paul and Wendy, being resources for me right there, and then administration and network beyond that to the alums, like that really sort of gives me that power inside me that, like, I'm very lucky because I have a really good support system, and a lot of them have showed that this past weekend. So yeah, I'm just lucky and excited to go forward.
Well, we'll talk more about the upcoming season in a bit, but let's go back to your own kind of personal journey to Trinity. While the game of squash has been super popular in Egypt, Coach Assaiante did not build his first set of national champion teams around Egyptian players. It was more players from Western Europe. We mentioned some South American players, some other parts of the world. So do you remember that first inkling of either playing, coming to college in the U.S. and playing squash, or that, and then I'm going to ask you the first interaction with Coach and or Trinity?
Yeah, so I'm actually the first ever Egyptian at Trinity on the men's side. Women had someone before me. I think we might have just overlapped for the last year. But yeah, I mean, I was one of the first ones in CSA in general. There's brothers that went to Princeton before my time, and then I arrived into January only that fall before. So just one semester before me, 2 other players went to different schools. So just being in Egypt and trying to figure out the college system was a little bit tricky. I had no one to ask really there, and that time between being interested and actually coming to Trinity involved a lot of serious events. So I'm gonna go through them, but I was coming for the US Junior Open, which happens around December, and I reached out to Coach. Hey, I'd love to meet you. He's like, yes, definitely, I'll be around. At that point, I had already heard a couple of things from Trinity, from current players who I've met in Europe in tournaments and things like that. So I already had a couple of friends here. So I come to the tournament. Coach did not make it because that was the weekend his daughter Emma was born. That same weekend, so we didn't end up meeting. I left. Then we were still exchanging emails because I had to head back to Egypt, and that January I was already a senior. So that January was like almost there for a regular decision. And the day of my TOEFL exam, the Arab Spring happens in Egypt, and they started a curfew, and I could not go to get my exam. So I was like, well, I know this was it. Like, I'm out of time. So long story short, I couldn't apply. I spent the summer here in the US coaching at a club, and I met Coach at one of these summer tournaments. He invited me to campus. An alum was here. He showed me around. It was during the summer. No one was here. And yeah, we stayed in touch. I started college in Egypt for not even a semester, because things started up a little bit later. But basically I had to, 7-8 weeks into college, I told my friends I'm leaving to play a tournament in the US, and while I was here, I received the note that I got admitted to Trinity to transfer that spring, which was about 3 weeks after. So I never came back, and my friends are probably checking on me now.
So in that process, what was it at that time that made you think I can achieve my goals at Trinity? Here's this person and coach that I can trust, my family can trust, and this might actually work out.
I think just meeting the team and the dynamic that when I was visiting, like, I really enjoyed that. I got along with coach right away, and yeah, it was basically me wanting to come to Trinity, and I never applied anywhere else. So it was just this, I went to this place, I had a good connection with that coach, and I already know people on the team. And add to that all the legacy and all the stuff. So I knew like I would be in a good environment where I will still improve as a player, and I will also challenge myself academically. And that was it. I was like just very narrow-minded on that. Like if that, I don't know what I've done if that transfer didn't work out that spring. I was like, if I were to finish a full year in Egypt, I don't know if I'll be here today. So I'm really glad it worked out that way. But
So if you can go back to that January, you arrive on campus. That's a point in the squash season where things are really ramping up. That specific time as we get ready to start the second semester is when we historically play all the IB matches and the real competitive matches for the season. So coach does it masterfully, but talk about those, if you can remember, those first couple of practices where everybody's trying to determine where you're going to sit in the pecking order.
Coming in January is tough. Like you just come in and you're right in it. I was already playing a match, I think 4 days after I arrived, and I was just overwhelmed. Everything's new. I still hadn't received my dorm room back then, so I was sharing with a teammate and things like that. But I think practices were very high energy. Squash is an individual sport, and training in Egypt is very like, you're just one-on-one with a coach, or you're one-on-one with, another player in your club, but it's never that big group of 20 guys and, training and pushing each other. So that really motivated me. And then, my first few matches were, I think we had a couple medium-ranked teams, and then Hartford, Yale, all the big Ivy matches, and the streak was still alive for 3 matches maybe for me. So that's the last 3 of the streak, and then we lost to Yale a couple weeks after, which was brutal. I had only been on the team for, call it 2 weeks, and it was devastating. And I thought I was a problem, but so that was, what a season to be part of. I mean, we bounced back after Yale, played against Hartford. I remember vividly being down 2-1 in games and 9-3, and then just looking outside the court, Bassett walks in the facility and he was watching and cheering on me, and I've heard of him, I've seen the picture outside, but back then I just that just sort of moved something in me. I came back and won that match, and it was 2-1, 9-3 is a big deficit to catch up. But this is just the little things that just sort of made me fall in love even more with this program and with our family of alums who are always there to support. At that point, he had graduated like maybe 4 years or something.
So let's fast forward a little bit to your own coaching career. Run as an assistant at Princeton. Kind of took a chance on yourself, bet on yourself a little bit last year, coming back to Trinity in the assistant role, knowing that coach more than likely than not was going to be retiring. When you think about taking over Trinity versus any other program in the CSA, any other collegiate program, what is it that says like, no, it's got to be Trinity?
I think it's definitely the way I feel about this program. I had a really good experience at Princeton. I got along with the coach there very well, but there was a piece of me that's always like, I'm not too familiar with what's happening academically or campus or things like that, and part of that could be also COVID being in the way. Like there was things shut for a bit, but this is something that, you know, I was gone for so many years and came back, and, you know, I'm still seeing the professors and, you know, staff. I know the campus very well. Even the courses, I can really become like a more of a like a consultant for the team, like, you know, like, so this is something that I felt like is important, and I could be of help there, because I know, like, our relationship with the team is way beyond just coaching. It's, you know, they come in and they talk about their coursework, or, you know, life, or their dorm, or so all these things that, like, I felt like this is more and yeah, I mean, my personal attachment is, yeah, I think I've covered a lot of it already, but yeah, this is a place where, you know, I left Egypt back in the day with my family and everything to come here, and it's been my home for the longest time in the US.
So when you think about a team like you have now, and you look at the young men who are part of the program, like, what are the things that you say, yep, that's exactly how we were 10 plus years ago, and what are the things where you say, oh, this is all changed dramatically? Besides the fact now we have a team that's, you know, almost half of the starters are from Egypt, and so that's certainly shifted, not only at Trinity but in the game in the CSA. But what's the same? What's different in teams these days?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think things are just more modernized. You know, a lot of things are just evolving, which is great. I mean, I've been going for 7-8 years now, so so yeah, things are like, you know, practice, technology, the structure, the resources they have. These are like all things that is like, you know, in my days there was a writing center and that was about it. I think, you know, if you break it down to, like, you know, strength and conditioning, I know there's been a ton of amazing work that these guys are doing with them. In my time here, I believe that came in the picture in my junior or senior year. So, like, yeah, I think this was one of the things. Athletic medicine, I've spent a lot of time there as a student, sadly, but just, you know, just going in there these days and then seeing, you know, the things they're doing with the athletes is, like, also very impressive. So yeah, I mean, it's a good sign. Things are evolving with time, and that's the whole goal, just to give the student athletes, like, a better experience and more help. Yeah.
So when you think about this group, it's a team that you know, you're fortunate to be a part of as an assistant coach last year. Kind of found itself late in the year, made a run to the CSA finals, lost 5-4 to Harvard, but had a couple matches with an opportunity to potentially steal a national championship last year. Talk about the mindset of that group, kind of coming out of that loss last year. A lot of those team members are back, including the defending individual national champion. Through your hiring this summer and now into this fall, what's the mindset of the group as you head into a new season that starts officially on Sunday with practice?
It's going to be a tough role for me as a coach, because their mindset is pretty much like they are impatient. They are super excited. Cannot wait. I don't think there's a single word of motivation I'm going to have to tell them this year. They've been doing a lot of training. You know, we've also, just the captains did an amazing job. We never had, well, not always it's easy for, you know, captains to lead that first month and a half, and usually by, like, week 2 things start to, like, you know, there's just been, you know, struggles and just, you know, getting everyone together, because the problem that you have is, like, people are coming from the summer at different races. So, like, right, you know, you can have someone who did a lot of squash but not a lot of gym work, or vice versa, or whatsoever. So just a matter of just keeping everyone healthy and coming up with one system that fits all 20 people with whatever they did the previous weeks could be a little bit tricky. But this summer went by this captain's practice period, I mean, went by pretty smoothly from what we're hearing. Same from strength coaches, and we're getting really good feedback. So I think the group is very excited. It's a strong team this year. So, you know, it's great. It's like, you know, our international first years specifically, you know, come in, and like, you know, we have Dima from Ukraine, who has, for as long as he remembers, he's been the best player in Ukraine on the men's side, like, and so no one to train with. He just trains on his own. So to come in and all of a sudden have 20 high class teammates is like, it's amazing. Yeah, I think we're excited, but it's a matter of just, you know, calming them down,
Sure.
physically and emotionally.
And so as you head into what should be another highly competitive season, you've been through it as a player, you've been through it as a coach here and other places. How do you help those first years adjust to, you know, they've never had to compete to be in a lineup. You go to the tournament, likely in the main bracket, and then you play your way through as long as you can play. So someone like Dima from Ukraine or any of the other first years, what's that conversation like with them, that you have to earn your spot in that starting lineup of 9, and it may not go perfectly right from the get-go?
Yeah, we're actually figuring all this right now because we're gonna go with a new system we haven't done before, but basically they have to earn the right to play in that position. So, you know, they will be placed somewhere to challenge this person, and you know, it's like a ladder system. So they're gonna be placed there. They beat that person, they're gonna take that spot and push them down. They do not, then they're gonna be placed somewhere else where it's, you know, closer to the level, and until they win the match and earn the right to come in. But I think, you know, especially this year, I think they are totally aware of the, you know, the quality of the players, and they roughly have an idea where they're gonna end up. But yeah, I think it's the most important thing is just to tell them in a very clear way that this is how we're gonna do the ladder. This is the system, so they understand what this match mean and, you know, the ramifications. Yeah, we're gonna have that conversation in a couple of days, so I'll let you know how it goes.
And then, you know, as you think about the next, you know, the next class and the class after that, how's recruiting going, kind of generally, and you know, what's the message that you're sharing? You know, there was kind of a message from Coach Assaiante for years, and you know, he evolved over time, and that message changed. What's your message, and you know, is it a lot of coach with a little bit of moves mixed in, or maybe vice versa?
My message is, you know, it comes back to me coming here as a student. So like, I can really talk a lot about Trinity. You know, like if they're interested in majors or whatever, we can have that conversation right at a tournament when I'm recruiting. Like, you know, it's something that I can just dive straight in with them, with the parents, with the coaches, and you know, in terms of the team, is from the beginning until the end, this place is a family, and so this is something that will always be the case, and I'll always, you know, work on trying to protect that. And this is not, it's not the same in other places. So this is something I feel like almost every person I've talked to wants to be in that dynamic. I've never talked to someone who said, no, I'd rather be a loner. But yeah, but this is something that, you know, it depends on what kind of experience they want. The other thing is, you know, just the on-court stuff. You know, this is something that I can still do. I've been getting on court, the other coaches, things like that. Like, you know, it's something that, you know, is a plus, because a lot of the players we are competing for versus the other schools are, you know, have aspirations to potentially go pro afterwards and things like that, and they want to make sure that they're not going to come and then just drop the level a bit, and that could be something tricky, as I experienced that when I first arrived. Being on a court with a coach one-on-one is something that I've done all my life until I came here, and it completely disappeared, and I was like, I need a bit of that. So just finding that balance between the individual work and the teamwork is something that I feel like I'm getting better at from being a coach.
So Moose, what about off the court? You had a busy summer, got married, your new wife moved to Hartford, so all of that, a wedding in her home country of Ecuador. So besides all that, what else is it kind of outside of squash that you enjoy? A fan of global football, I'm sure, but what else is out there for you?
Yeah, we've had a crazy summer. You can definitely tell I gave her quite the honeymoon period. But yeah, it's been straight. I didn't have a chance to rest since last season ended, really. But we're very excited. We're all here now, and everything's great. Typically, when I'm not getting married, I would be playing a ton of, trying to learn golf. I watch a ton of football, soccer. Man United fan, so please don't post this part on Instagram. Yeah, but it's pretty much a lot of what I do. I like to hang out with people. I try to read, but not as much as I should. Yeah.
Well, now you can see it all on video, so you don't as much. Well, Moose, we're really excited about the upcoming season. Can't wait to see you and the team in action, and so great having you back on the Third Floor Fairs.
Thank you, Drew.
That'll do it for this conversation in the Coop. For all the latest news, scores, and schedules, go to bantamsports.com and follow us on social media at Bantam Sports. Until next time.